All right, on this episode of Bouts Talking Bouts is a big fight coming up at BKFC 10. It's happening on February 15th, a co-main event feature, and that is going between Kaleb Harris and Jim Alers. And I've got Jim on the show. How's your day going so far there, Jim?
It's going good. How about yours?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. And I was just noticing that this is a quarterfinal bout to determine the inaugural 155-pound champion for BKFC. What does that aspect of this fight mean to you?
Man, it's a lot, man. I'm excited about it. I've always felt already that I should be crowned the champion already. But I know BKFC wants us to do this tournament, which is cool. I get it, but I'm pretty confident going into it. Kaleb is a good guy. He's a overall nice guy. And he's definitely a hard hitter. And I'm excited to see where this fight's going to go.
Yeah, and it's cool because I'd seen you'd posted on social media, as recently as November 2019 that you were really looking for that 155-pound title. And even before that, it kind of seemed to be on your radar because I remember doing some interviews for that BKFC 7 card, and I was talking to some of the people in the promotion, and there seemed to be talks that that fight there with Garcia was a bit of a, title eliminator kind of situation. Just all things considered, how does it feel now to be like ahead of a moment where you're finally getting that opportunity to wear some gold?
It feels good, man. I like that I'm getting the recognition that I think, I feel that I deserve. I never thought that I was going to go this far with the promotion, but, ever since that, after my first fight and then especially the Garcia fight, it was such an honor to fight someone like that and just kind of finish Garcia the way I did. He's always been known as, such a tough guy, a brawler. And, I was just like, man, I've got to finish this guy before we get into that type of fight. And, after I did that, I think it definitely just opened people's eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's curious that you kind of phrased it like that. So was your initial thought process to maybe like try a single bare-knuckle fight, see how it goes? Like just do it out of curiosity? Like what was the initial mentality heading into, BKFC? Because it was interesting how you phrased it there.
No, honestly, yeah, it was just it was just like, hey, let me give this a try. I watched a couple of them. They reached out to me actually before I ever watched any. So I went back and I took a look at it, and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't look as bad as it sounds. And I'm like, I'm going to give it a try, see what happens. And, I was going into it expecting to be, I'm like, I might get cut up. This might happen, and we'll see. And, thank God it hasn't happened. I haven't been cut up. I haven't been into one of those wars yet, out of 3 fights. But every fight after that, I was like, you know what? I kind of went into this thinking this is going to happen, and it hasn't happened, so why not do another one?
Yeah, and I mean you're unbeaten now. Like you've got the multi-fight sort of setup with BKFC, and you've impressed each time out, and just really cool considering because like in your MMA career, like I mean obviously you have a well-rounded game, but it was very centric to the BJJ kind of aspect of things, but just like getting some really emphatic highlight reel performances in BKFC. So how has the transition been, I guess, between the two sports? Like are there certain key fundamental differences with, I guess, like the preparation and the methodology between MMA and sort of BKFC?
For me, MMA, I always went to my bread and butter. I was like, I used my striking, but not to knock people out. I used it to get people to put their hands up and then take them down, and then I submitted them. But now that that option is out of the table, I can't submit them. I can't take them down. So now I am, just strictly focusing mostly a lot on my stand up to finish the fight. So I can't. If I rock you, I'm going to try to finish you. I'm going to try to knock you out. My training, though, as far as that goes, I feel like it's a lot lighter on the body. For MMA, you're wrestling, you're doing Jiu-Jitsu, you're doing so many other things that just take a toll on your body. But now that I'm just doing bare knuckle, I don't have to really. I still train everything. I train everything all the time, but I don't have to put that such a hard of a push on the wrestling, which is wrestling is just so hard on your body. I've wrestled for so many years, so I'm glad that I can just really focus on just keeping my body healthy and making sure my hands are fast, keeping them up, and focusing on getting those knockouts.
Absolutely, and I mentioned you have the 3-0 record in BKFC, but you also had three jiu-jitsu events throughout that similar kind of stretch. So it seems like you're kind of concurrently competing between those two disciplines. Are you kind of looking to do that extending into 2020 as well, or would the focus be solely on, this tournament being that there's a title on the line?
My goal is just to always stay active. I feel when I'm out of the ring and I wait too long, when I was in the UFC, that I think I fought like once a year maybe, and I think that affected me. I wasn't competing because I was so worried about getting hurt, and what happened is that when the fights would come and I would train, I would end up getting hurt, and I believe that's because I just wasn't active. My body was just going through like a shock, like, hey, all of a sudden now you are training way harder than you were before, and I was getting injured way more. But now that I'm just active all the time, I feel so good. My body feels great, and I think I'm going to continue doing that. Just in anything, I'll compete in jiu-jitsu, I'll compete in wrestling, I'll compete in arm wrestling, dumb wrestling, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, it's good you have that competitive spirit for sure. And I mean, I get you were talking about the MMA training being very arduous and whatnot, but is there any, I guess, like future goals to get back to MMA? I mean, in like near future, distant future, maybe focus on these disciplines right now? Like, I guess, what's the plan going forward in as far as MMA competition?
I think I like the idea of going back. We'll see what happens. But obviously, right now, my main focus is bare-knuckle. I really want that title. And jiu-jitsu, I kind of just do for fun. I do just to stay active. But as far as MMA, who knows? If the right opportunity comes along in the future, maybe we might make that happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, this is the inaugural 155-pound belt for BKFC, and that's certainly a great distinction for sure, like being the first champion in a title's lineage and stuff like that. But also, BKFC has put on some, Police Gazette title fights and things of that nature with, like, the century plus lineage that's attached to it, just so rich in history. And to that point, I guess, do you have any interest in maybe getting a future fight where there's like a Police Gazette belt on the line? Like, are you familiar with like the rich history? Is it something that intrigues you to be part of a lineage like that? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've talked to them, and I was like, hey, yeah, I think your belt, it means so much. I would love if you guys can put the belt on the line. As long as the bare knuckle FC belt when we're fighting in this tournament, it would mean so much to be a champion in Police Gazette champion, to be in the bare knuckle Hall of Fame, and just be a part of history. That would be great.
Yeah, for sure. And just with a history-minded kind of lens, too. I mean, you had that open workout at Fifth Street Gym in Miami, which, like, obviously rich lineage there. What was, that whole experience like with, like, some of the media stuff ahead of BKFC 10?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, to be in kind of the same boxing ring and stuff that Muhammad Ali was training in, and to be in a spot that so many, like, celebrities and whatnot tried to come and get that work in. So it was really cool to be there, and kind of just, I feel like I kind of stole the show there, me and my boxing coach, Kevin Gleason. We were there, we were doing some great mitt work. I was riding the bike, and I just felt happy to be there and show them just a little taste of what's going to happen on February 15th.
Absolutely. And obviously, yourself and Jason Knight have been linked to each other a fair bit. And I think a lot of people thought after he'd beaten Artem Lobov in the rematch there that would be sort of the next fight for both of you guys. Do you see that fight coming to fruition at any point in the year 2020? Or do you think this tournament is going to like take up the bulk of your schedule? Like, is that a fight you're still like expressly wanting to have at some point down the line?
Yeah, I feel that's the one fight in my career that I actually felt like I got beat. If you lose by like TKO or whatnot, you get caught. But when you lose by decision, it's because the other guy was the better fighter that day. And even though it was a split decision, it was close. People say, "Oh man, you won." When I went back at it and I looked at it, I felt that I lost. So was it a close fight? Yeah, it was a very close fight. Do I feel like I could have done better? Yeah, I do feel like I could have done better. So that's why I do feel like I would love that rematch. As far as happening in 2020, I'm not too sure because I think they wanted to fight 3 times for that bare knuckle title. So I think that would probably take the gist of the year. But 2021, maybe that might happen.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think that's an important sort of mentality to have. Like you talk about how even though certain people were saying, "Oh yeah, you won the fight," like you still had this like objective sort of perception where it's like, "No, I think I actually lost the fight." How important is it for you to have that like I guess like raw level of self-awareness in as far as just like developing as a fighter? Like is it like a key part of your mental game and the processes on that end of things?
Yeah, I think any fighter that doesn't think that they have room for improvement is gonna start losing. They're not going to grow and not going to be the best fighter that they can be. You should always. I want fights that even when I won, and I'm like, man, I can't believe I fought that way. I could fight way better. I get back in the gym, following next couple of days, and I'm trying to improve on mistakes that I made throughout that fight.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I also noticed a few months ago you had the 1 year anniversary party for Alers martial arts there and just like really making big strides in a relatively short amount of time. I'm kind of wondering though, like with teaching people certain technique and imparting some martial arts to them, like how does that benefit your own individual efforts as a fighter?
I feel that as I teach, I'm always learning, man. I have to go over techniques that probably I haven't thought about in so long, and it's really cool that I'm competing, and I don't really train outside of my gym with much other fighters or what. And so I'm training with a lot of beginners, but I'm repping my stuff over and over and over and over and over again. That when I fight, I'm doing some of these moves that I'm showing them, and it's cool that my students will be like, "Hey man, you just showed us that last move. That was awesome that you were able to hit that in the fight." So I think it's great that I have my students to teach. My students are very supportive of me fighting still. So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying teaching. I love having the school, and we're just growing and having a good time doing it.
That's awesome to hear, man. And I'm kind of wondering because, like, when I talk to fighters, I usually ask if there's certain genres of music they're partial to train to, if there's certain artists that get them fired up when they're training. Like, if you get hold of the aux cord, what are you generally putting on?
Man, it's weird. I'm not a big music guy, honestly. Like, I would listen to like audiobooks and stuff. I used to listen. I mean, a long time ago when Harry Potter's were in, I would listen to like Harry Potter coming before tournaments and stuff when I did jiu-jitsu. But music, I don't know, man. Whatever. I just listen to whatever is on the radio for the most part. If I do listen to the music, I'm not a big music guy.
No, that's cool, man. The audiobook kind of thing is cool. Is it like rooted in like it? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean I'll shadow box just to like silence, and I enjoy just listening to the sound of the mitts, listening to the sound of me hitting the bag. Like those are the kind of things that makes me feel pumped and ready to go. I'll put on crowd music so I can get used to that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Just like the general ambience of the whole thing. I've also talked to fighters who don't really train to music as much because they're kind of trying to replicate the conditions of fight night because it's like you don't have music playing in the background to get you through certain tough spots. So it probably has utility on that end too.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure, man. But you've been really good with your time. I'm curious, so if there's anything you'd like to add as a parting thought as we're kind of wrapping up here, though.
Honestly, man, I'm just excited about this. We're 10 days away from bare-knuckle fighting championship 10. I've been putting into work. Like I said, I just kind of stay ready, man. It's just not like the last fight ended and I just took a vacation. I got back in the gym, back into hitting mitts with my coach, and just staying ready, waiting for this fight. And now that it's approaching, I'm just super excited. I'm excited that it's in Fort Lauderdale, in basically my backyard. And I hope to put on a show for my fans, for my family, and my friends.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one going at Greater Fort Lauderdale Convention Center, which is apropos. And if people can't be there live and in person, they can definitely stream it on Fight TV. It's BKFC 10, goes on February 15th, and we've got a co-main event tilt between Kaleb Harris and Jim Alers. I really appreciate all the time and insights, man. Best of luck with the remaining part of those preparations there, and have a great rest of your day too, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.